Hey guys, welcome back to this lecture. Integrate AMP with our existing open source Prometheus cluster. So in this lecture, we will basically introduce the Amazon managed Prometheus service inside our monitoring stack, and we will see how we can use it as a long-term storage and for other functionalities. Okay, so let us quickly jump onto the demo now. So here you can see it is the current workspace that we have. Okay, so let us do one thing. Let us click on it and let us get the detail of your remote write and remote query endpoint. So these are the two endpoints. So guys, first of all, what we need from for this setup is we need to update the Prometheus configuration file of our traditional, or you say, Prometheus service that we are running in our stack. So let us quickly go to the Prometheus configuration file. So I'm currently inside my primary Prometheus service. So I'll go inside Prometheus YAML here, and here in place of remote write, what you'll have to do in the URL, you will have to provide the remote write URL for the Prometheus. Okay, so let me paste it here. Okay, let me just quickly go to the front. Okay, URL. Let me correct the format. Okay, now it is good. And the next thing that we need to do, we need to add the SIG-v4 authentication so that my Prometheus can be authorized to access the Amazon managed service, right? So because this Prometheus is running inside the container, and I want it to be to access the Amazon managed service, so for that we need the SIG-v4 authentication to be enabled. Okay, and here in the region field we will give the current region of our Prometheus stack. Okay, so this is US East 1. Now it's time for remote read. Same thing we'll do here as well. I will comment it out, and in the new URL I'll give the query endpoint here. So guys, here I'm doing a mistake intentionally, and we will see what it is. Okay, and this will be very helpful for you as well. So I'm just sorry, this is not the endpoint for query, this is the right query endpoint. So let me just paste it here, and here again I'll give the SIG-v4 authentication, SIG-v4, and in the region I'll give US East 1. Okay, I will save it, and I will replicate this configuration inside my another container as well. I'll copy it here. Please do not forget to update the replica label of that Prometheus container, the secondary one. So let me just quickly go inside that configuration file. Here I'll make it from 2. Okay, so this is done. Now it's time we restart our container. Okay, so guys, before restarting the container, we need to take care of one more thing. So because here we are trying to communicate with the Amazon managed service from the Prometheus container, so the role that is attached to my EC2 instance where all the setup is running should have the appropriate permissions as well. So for that we will quickly go to the instance role, and we will give it the permission to read and write to Amazon managed Prometheus. Okay, so let us go to permissions here and add the permission here. We'll use the AWS managed permissions policies. We'll search with the Prometheus string, and here you can see a remote write access and remote read access, or you can say query access. So I'll attach these policies here. So now I'm done with the permissions as well. Now it's time to restart the container. So let us quickly restart it. I'll restart both the containers at once, so I do not have to restart it one by one. Okay, now let's see whether the containers are up. Okay, these are restarting. Let's see what is the issue. I'm sorry, it should be logs. Just a second. Okay, so it is saying the error is at line 40, the field sigv4 not found in the type config.plane. Now let us see what is the line 40. Okay, cat -n, and then I'll check for prometheus.yml. And here it is saying this particular sigv4 is not in the control plane. Now why we are getting this error, guys? If you remember, I said I'm creating a mistake intentionally. So this was the mistake which I was doing, and the error we are getting because this remote read API in our open source Prometheus currently does not support the sigv4 authentication. So if I show you the official documents as well, let me just quickly open it. So you will be able to see that we do not have sigv4 authentication available there. So let us first check the remote write, whether we have sigv4 available here in the remote write. If you will scroll down, you can see it, sigv4 is available here. Okay, and if you go to remote read now, just below this, so here you do not have the sigv4 authentication available. So that is not currently implemented. Maybe in the future they will have it, so then you will be able to use the sigv4 to authenticate with the endpoint. Now the next question, like how does the sigv4 works? So sigv4 basically in the backend uses your AWS SDK only, and that SDK basically uses the EC2 instance role to connect to the other services. Okay, so it is saying sigv4 is not available, so we'll change the configuration again. So I will just comment it out here. I'll replicate the same in other Prometheus instance as well. Okay, now again I will restart the containers. I'll restart both at once so that they come up. Okay, both the containers are up and working now. Okay, now the next question, let us do one thing. Let us again create an intentional mistake. Okay, so let us go to Prometheus console now, and let's see what we are seeing. Okay, we are getting the remote endpoint here now, and what we are getting, we are missing authentication token. This is in the remote read endpoint or remote read API. What does this mean? Because we have not provided the authentication mechanism for this endpoint, right? So guys, as we cannot use sigv4 authentication for the remote read API, so in this case you can either go with the authorization using the credentials, that is which should be in the form of bearer token, or you can read the credential from the credential file as well. Okay, so this is one way you can use for this AMP, and that you'll have to configure. In this demo we are not covering this, as this is not the part of this demo. Okay, so we'll do one thing, we'll not read the I'll say we'll not read the metric data from this AMP inside the Prometheus. Rather, we will use Grafana, and from Grafana we will integrate with AMP. Okay, and in Grafana we can use both remote and remote read and remote write, and we will use a sigv4 authentication for that. Okay guys, so now it is done. Now let us do one thing, let us open the Grafana console. It is running at 8080 port, so let me just quickly open it. Okay, now it's time we create a new data source for our AMP. Okay, so I'll use the Prometheus data source type, and here in the URL, as it is the query URL, because it will be reading the data from here, I'll use the query URL here, and we'll be passing the sigv4 authentication here. Okay, so we will enable it because I want my container to use the Zigbee for authentication to communicate with the AMP service. And also guys, you'll have to make sure that you are not taking the last part, the substrings after the URL. So what you'll do, you'll just remove it, API v1 query, and you'll keep it till here only. Okay, so we have enabled Zigbee 4. Apart from that, we can select the region, default region for us, where our AMP is. Okay, now let us test the connection. Okay, great. So data source is working here. So we can say, okay, Grafana was able to make the connection with the AMP. Now guys, it's time we explore the things. Okay, so we will be using this data source and we will explore the metrics available to us. Okay, now here I'll click on it and I can see all the matrices that I have in the AMP that was written from the open source Prometheus services. Okay, so guys, we were able to integrate the Grafana with the AMP and we can see all the matrices here now. Okay, so this completes this lecture here. Now in this lecture, the highlights are like we have integrated our Prometheus stack with AMP. Okay, and then we have used Grafana to read the data from your AMP service. Also, why we have used and why we cannot use the Prometheus to read the data from AMP, because the current remote read API in your open source Prometheus does not support the Zigbee for authentication. You will have to go with the other authorization mechanism. Okay, so this was about this lecture, guys. We will take a step forward and we'll learn more about the Prometheus in the upcoming lectures. So I will see you in the next lecture. Thank you.